There were no Indians here when Christopher Columbus got here. There were people from Africa who had been here for over 10,000 years before Christopher Columbus was born. It's time for us to teach our children the truth.
Black people are indigenous to the United States, that they were here in this land before Europeans came. What?
We were mixed in with the Aboriginal people here. We have to understand that we were here. Many of our ancestors were here before Columbus.
They stole the land from the Native Americans. Then they stole my ancestors and made them build the country.
The first Americans are black people, and the American government lied when they said we come from Africa. We are not from Africa. We are from America. And since you want proof, here it is.
Black Americans are the only real Americans, not immigrants.
I have no African descent in my blood. I'm a Native American. So literally, I'm a Cherokee, I'm a Blackfoot, I'm a Red-tailed Indian. That's what's in my blood.
This cleared the air once and for all. There is a lot of confusion going around about the true origins of Black Americans. Some people say all Black Americans came from Africa, while others argue that they are the Aboriginals, the original owners of their land in America. These claims can be messy, but today we're going to break this down carefully using history, science, and common sense so that you won't be misled again. I want you to be attentive and listen to what I'm gonna tell you. But before we get into the video, I want you to first of all watch these clips, and the credits belong to original creators of those clips. After that, I will come back and give you all you need to understand this.
Black Americans originated from Africa, right? I thought so. So I've been posting a lot of videos about the experiences of Black Americans in US history. And I've been getting a lot, the reason I'm making this video is because I've been getting a lot of comments that are saying, no, actually, Black people are indigenous to the United States, that they were here in this land before Europeans came. What?
You are European. That's who you are. And from my knowledge, y'all didn't exist until 2,000 years ago. Don't believe me? Look it up. But my ancestors, we've always been here for millions of years.
So I naturally did what one does. I asked chat. And chat says, if you don't have these yet, you're going to need them. Chat says, analyzing the statement, Black people here are indigenous. What's accurate? Some Black Floridians have indigenous ancestry, particularly through Black Seminole or Maroon connections. They may identify as Afro-indigenous, and some of their communities are reclaiming that identity. Maybe that's where some of the comments are coming from. What's inaccurate? Claiming that Black Americans here are indigenous as a general statement ignores the central origin of Black Americans descended primarily from Africans brought via the transatlantic slave trade. Okay. And it added a section here because chat knows me so well by now. How to navigate the conversation respectfully. Chat, you know what I need. It says, acknowledge the real and deep Afro-indigenous heritage in Florida, especially among Black Seminole descendants. Clarify that while this heritage is meaningful, most Black Floridians trace lineage to Africa and the slave trade. And then it says, of course, consult peer-reviewed articles, local archives, and books that provide nuanced histories. So there you go. If you're someone that knows about this, like in a credible way from primary sources or other really good information, I'd love to know. Just absorbing the horrifying history of slavery and its legacy to this day as a white man, this is an interesting part of this history that I didn't know, and I'm just really interested in. So feel free to share any thoughts that you have.
Everybody finding out that they're indigenous to this land. But I already knew I was an Aboriginal. Okay? My family, on my maternal side, I don't really too much know about my father's side. But on my maternal side, we're Blackfoot Indian. Okay? My family did not come from Africa. That coming from Africa story never resonated with me. I always felt like it was some BS. But after my research, because the thing is, people They don't research. They don't read. And see, I am highly, highly intelligent. I am a researcher, okay? Been this way. But I'm so glad that people are finally waking up to the reality of the truth, which is you're Aboriginal. We've been here. We didn't come here from Africa.
The first Americans are black people, and the American government lied when they said we come from Africa. We are not from Africa. We are from America. And since you want proof, here it is.
Prehistoric skulls were found buried in layers of soil 9 to 12,000 years old. They are the oldest skulls in the Americas. And this is the oldest of them all. The skull of a young woman, nicknamed Luthia by scientists. Can she tell us who the first Americans were? The cast was then given to Richard Neve of the University of Manchester in England to recreate her features.
That to me is a Negroid face that has all the features that you associate with a Negroid face. It doesn't say anything about it being a Mongoloid.
Hey y'all, I'm just here to remind you that after 400 years, America is a legitimate country of origin. What I'm saying is when black Americans tell you that they are American, please stop following up with, but where are you from? The answer is America. See, that's the problem with black Americans. They don't know where they're from. Black Americans built this country. This is where they are from. It's most of the rest of us who just got here. Aside from the Native Americans, who are the OG Americans, shout out to them. Also, for the people who like to say that black Americans don't know where they come from, do y'all say the same thing to black Jamaicans? Black Brazilians? White Americans? I bet no one asks white Americans what part of Europe they descend from. Everyone else gets a pass on not being able to tell you where their bloodline started, but black Americans gotta give you their genealogy. And a lot of that is rooted in this belief that black Americans lack culture. Meanwhile, the whole world copies black American culture, from their clothes to their music to their internet trends. Anyway, if y'all wanna honor Juneteenth and the legacy of slavery beyond today, I recommend visiting the Whitney Plantation in Louisiana, which is one of the few plantation tours that actually focuses on the history of slavery and not just antebellum life. And if you want, I can drop a video on the Whitney Plantation in the comments.
Black Americans are the only real Americans, not immigrants. I feel like we're forgetting someone. I feel like we're forgetting a very specific group of very often forgotten people. I feel like we're forgetting someone. Unrelated, I've never had fry bread, and I really want to try. Is that problematic? I don't know. I want to try fry.
I have no African descendant in my blood. I'm a Native American. So literally, I'm a Cherokee, I'm a Blackfoot, I'm a Red-tailed Indian. That's what's in my blood. A lot of people in America is indigenous people. You're not from Africa, American at all. My folks is not from Africa. And a lot of people in this room, folks, ain't from Africa.
What culture do you consider yourself a part of? I am Cherokee Native American, born here in Virginia. I have no African heritage whatsoever and no African relatives. I am all Cherokee Indian. How come? You probably are too. Well, why do you say that? Because the Indian is black, actually. It's the same people that Columbus met when he got off the boat. We are not African. This is Richmond, Virginia, where the first 20 slaves landed. There's no record of any other slaves landing here. Those 20 Africans that landed here were on a boat that was hijacked by Portuguese. The real black slaves here were Portuguese. Most of the slaves in this country were actually white, not black.
We were mixed in with the Aboriginal people here. We have to understand that we were here. Many of our ancestors were here before Columbus. We're taught that the Native American people are these Indian-looking people with long hair that looks like weaves. Some of the Aboriginal people here look just like us. You go down and see the Olmec statues. You go to California, the Ohlone Indians, the Mojave Indians. I'm talking about jet black people, all on this eastern seaboard, jet black people. So we were mixed in with the brothers and sisters brought over from the diaspora. In the 1920s, William Flecker, the white man who worked at the Vital Statistics Office, he went out of his way. He was a white supremacist. He went out of his way to erase the records of black people who were Native American. and they just reclassified everybody as Negro. This went on into the 1960s. The case with Loving versus the state of Virginia is based on the ruling that he put together. The one-drop rule was really not just for white people. The one-drop rule was to stop us from claiming our native Aboriginal status. Mildred Loving, the woman who was a part of that case, she's actually Native American. She was reclassified as Negro. So this is a piece of our history that's not told to us because we're taught that we're comparative to immigrants and foreigners, and we are not. So we have to understand this is our land.
I'm not African. I'm not Black American. I am Native American. Like, seriously, what's wrong? What's wrong with all of us? Like, what is wrong? What is happening in 2025 in America? Now they're claiming that they're not Black anymore. So what are you guys? You are not white? Somebody need to get a diagnosis from the doctor. Like, for real. What is wrong with all of us? What is this now? So, like, white people, they don't even have to try to separate us. We are doing it we are doing it to ourselves. And then we're cool. We're like, yeah, fuck those people. This is the wrong fight. Like, please, let's go back to the one gorilla against 100 humans. That's it. That was the right fight.
The European settlers came here to America to erase the history of Black indigenous people. Black indigenous people versus the indigenous people of today. I've been trying to stay away from this topic. Lord knows I have, but I keep seeing it on my For You page, so my spirit is telling me to talk about it. So, indigenous. What does indigenous mean? It means original. So, who were originally on this planet? My ancestors. My ancestors who look just like me. Black, copper color, woolly hair. And when we were here, we spread it out everywhere. Asia, China, Mexico, Africa. We didn't miss America. We spread it out everywhere. You are European. That's who you are. And from my knowledge, y'all didn't exist until 2,000 years ago. Don't believe me? Look it up. That my ancestors, we've always been here for millions of years. So you get on here calling us pretendians, not even realizing that you are one. Oh, you didn't know? Your ancestors, who were Europeans, came to America, erased the history of Black indigenous people, and then started calling themselves Indians. You didn't know? $5 Indians, look it up. I'm not lying. Black people are not pretendians. Black people of America, we're not pretendians. We are indigenous to this land and to this planet. Whether we're from Africa, you are an indigenous African. Whether you're from America, we are indigenous Americans. Because we have always been here. We are the original. Now I ask you again, who the fuck are you? Black people were never pretendians. We're just waking up to who we truly are.
We didn't hear anything about Africa growing up within our household.
Okay.
We only knew what we saw on television. My grandmother never talked about, that we were from Africa or whatever. It was never taught in school. So we that wasn't a discussion for us.
Okay.
So that all we knew was what we saw on television, and the images we saw on television were always the worst part. It was always the worst part of Africa.
Oh, wow.
We never really saw how beautiful Africa is, or was, or is, until we were older.
Okay.
We always they always showed us the worst part, where no shoes, no clothes, the big stomachs, the big bellies, and the gnats and flies all in their faces. That's what we saw. That's what we were. That's what we were shown. And then and if they wanted us to believe that we came from Africa, that was to me that was a way of telling us that this is where you came from and this is where you should be now. That kind of thing,
Black Americans claim of being the original indigenous people of this land.
Disclaimer, this creator has apologized for claims made in this video about African Americans being settlers. But I do just want to make a point about some of the things I've been saying about how deeply rooted anti-Blackness can be. That opening statement that African Americans claim to be the indigenous people of this land is really interesting because if you are in African American spaces, if you know African American people, you know how much of a pariah the pretendians are. You know exactly how much they are shunned. And even if you find one such person talking about being indigenous, you'll see the comments, and the comments are other African Americans being like, be for real, be serious, stop, 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 stop. It's this thing where I've said that Black people know how to hold our own accountable. We are in the comments, we're like, hey, please stop doing that. But for some reason, there's this pervasive idea that Black people are never held accountable for anything, which then encourages people to make these wide, sweeping, scathing statements about minority groups that are already being handled. The pretendians are such a fringe of African American community and society that it would be strange to build up an entire argument against them and how they are systemically causing harm because they don't have even the numbers to do so. They're just people stuck in their own delusions, rooted also in extreme Afrophobia. So I just want to encourage people to be in community with Black people. You hear Black people already have a lot of critiques about ourselves first. And if you're not sure, instead of making bold statements, just ask or be like, hey guys, how common is this? People will be willing to tell you. And even in the follow-up, people are super understanding towards her and just totally forgiving of that original claim because they understand where she was coming from by discussing how, yes, even though African Americans are brought here forcefully, they still live on indigenous land that was stolen from indigenous people. That is very, very true. So we get that part, but they're not settlers. So this is your Saturday morning reminder to just get in community with Black people.
If the people that we now call African Americans are the true Aboriginal people of the Americas, then who are the people that we call Native Americans? The $5 Indians. 1887, Congressman Henry Dawes of Massachusetts sponsored a landmark piece of legislation called the Dawes Severalty Act. What it did was allowed non-Native people to falsely claim Native status by paying $5, which gave them access to land and resources meant for real tribes people. However, it is important to note that before 1887 and the deliberate removal, destruction, and obliteration of all records that prove that the Aboriginal people of the Americas were Negro, the Webster Dictionary of 1828 described an American as follows: a native of America, originally applied to Aboriginals or the copper-colored races, found here by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America.
It's crazy that some Black Americans are desperate to dissociate themselves from African heritage, despite the obvious genetic characteristics that resemble that of African people. You are wearing African DNA, but you vehemently disagree with being associated with African heritage. And then they are so desperate to cling to that continent that they were shipped to, fabricating some type of history where they are related to Native American Indians. Most of you look nothing like Native American Indians. Nothing. In fact, Native American Indians look more like Mexican people, and you can see it based on one genetic characteristic, the hair texture. Now, I do understand that some Black Americans will have Native American DNA in them. This is by virtue of being on that continent for the past few centuries. Cross-pollination will take place. So that was inevitable for the mixing of DNAs to occur. But for Black Americans to deny African heritage is really a mental illness. Imagine a Chinese American said, "No, I'm native to America." You would look at them as though they were crazy, because you can see obviously that their genetic traits say otherwise. How can you as a Black American stand there, look yourself in the face with African characteristics and tell yourself that you are more closely related to Native American Indians? This is a sickness. This is a sickness caused by Black people being around white people for too long. And I don't see myself as Black. What do you see yourself as? I'm a white person. It's difficult because I don't identify as being Black. Also, like, I was brought up white, so I'm white. Me, eventually, your Blackness or your Afrocentricity gets whitewashed to a point where you start to demonize being African. You start to look at it as a subclass of people, a class of people lower than your own, yet you are the same. Do you see the cognitive dissonance? You have Black Americans boycotting African businesses. You are boycotting your roots. This doesn't make sense. You have Black people hating on African artists. This doesn't make sense. These are your roots. You are hating on your own roots, and you are so desperate to claim to made up roots. Wake up. Then you get the Black Americans who say, nah, you don't really know us. You looking from the outside in. Sometimes it requires looking from the outside in to gain an objective perspective on the general behavior of a group of people. And I can relate to this as a South African because South Africans experience similar cognitive dissonance, where South Africans are xenophobic towards other Africans. Yet we are the same. If you look at the world right now, it's a bunch of African people fighting other African people for God knows what. We don't even understand why we're fighting a lot of the time. We are just angry. We're so angry from all the colonialism. We are now fighting each other for that shit. We're blaming each other for that shit, for being separate.
Traditionally, schools in the US have taught that Black Americans are the descendants of the enslaved Africans, forcibly brought across the Atlantic Ocean between the 1500s and the 1800s. That history is real, painful, and well documented. But over time, many Black Americans began questioning, what if we didn't all come from Africa? Alternative theories and oral tradition that suggest that some Black Americans were already living in the Americas before Columbus. This sparked the belief among some groups that Black Americans are actually the Aboriginals of the land. Before Columbus, the Americas were not empty. Millions of people lived there, known broadly as Native Americans or Amerindians. Historical records, including Columbus' own writing, mention that some of these groups had darker skin tones. European explorers often described meeting black-skinned Indians. Now here's the key. Were these people Africans? Not exactly. They were indigenous groups of the Americas who, due to migration and adaptation, happened to have darker complexion. They were not the same as the West Africans who were enslaved and transported across the Atlantic. So yes, there were black-looking people in the Americas before Columbus. But those people, they were not large in number. That is why historians agree that while a small percentage of Black Americans today may trace ancestry to those groups, the majority descend from Africans who crossed the Atlantic during slavery. Between 1500s and 1800s, more than 12 million Africans were shipped to the Americas. Roughly 500,000 to 600,000 landed in what is now known as the United States, and most of them were taken from West Africa. Regions like Senegal, Gambia, Ghana, Nigeria, and Angola. This trade is heavily documented with ship logs, records from slave auctions, plantation documents, and oral histories. The cultural evidence is strong too. Traditions like call and response singing, African drumming patterns, certain foods, and even African names survived the Middle Passage and still influence Black American culture today. So the argument that some pretendians are bringing that Black Americans have no roots in Africa doesn't hold up historically. Here is another important point. Not only Black Americans have roots in Africa, but every human being on this earth has roots in Africa. Fossils like Lucy and genetic evidence trace humanity back to East Africa, specifically the Rift Valley. Scientists refer to mitochondrial Eve, a woman who lived in Africa about 150,000 to 200,000 years ago, from whom all modern humans descend. Skin color, hair texture, and facial features changed over time because of adaptation to different climates. People in colder regions developed lighter skin to absorb more vitamin D, while people in hotter regions kept darker skin for protection. So whether you are white, Asian, Latino, or Black American, your deeper origin is still in Africa. So why do some Black Americans hold to the Aboriginal theory? Part of it is the mistrust of the education system in America. Let's be real, America has lied about Black history before. From downplaying slavery to erasing Black inventors, mistrust is valid. Another reason is psychological. It can feel empowering to claim direct ownership of the land, to say we were here before Columbus. And this is a response to centuries of displacement. And the third, misinformation spreads quickly on social media. Some American influencers push the "we are Native American" idea without context, and people latch onto it. Here is the truth. Some Black Americans were in the Americas before Columbus, but they were a minority. The overwhelming majority of Black Americans are the descendants of enslaved Africans brought across the Atlantic. And deeper than that, all humans, regardless of the nationality, trace back to Africa. So when someone tells you that all Black Americans are Aboriginals, that is misleading. And when someone says you have no roots in America before slavery, that is not 100% true either. Both realities exist, but one is far larger than the other. Don't let confusion divide Black Americans and Africans. You have African roots, you have American roots, and you have the global story that connects you to humanity itself. Knowing the truth doesn't take away from your greatness, it strengthens it. You are the descendants of the survivors of the Middle Passage, survivors of slavery, and possibly survivors of the forgotten Aboriginal groups. The resilience is what defines Black America today. Instead of Black Americans and Africans getting caught in debates that separate them, let's stand on the facts, embrace our shared history, and honor the ancestors who made it possible for us to be there. That was it for today, guys. Let me know whether you got any question. Ask me down there in the comment section. I'll be there to answer you. And if you have enjoyed watching this episode, please make sure you hit that like button. And if you really want to support me, there's a link down there in the description. You can click on it and join my channel membership. That was it for today. See you in the next one.